Hi, welcome to one of our workshops and talks that we're going to be doing here quite regularly, and the whole basis of today is to understand how do you break into your fullest potential. And first, we have to look at why do we not have our fullest potential in the first place, right? First off, has anybody heard of hypnosis or hypnotherapy? Okay. Has anybody actually done it? Okay.
Past life regression.
You've done past life regression. Okay. Past life regression a little different. It's the experience of deep states of meditation or that. And we can utilize hypnosis to access the unconscious mind, but that's not necessarily what we need to do in order to change beliefs and things like that. If we kind of backtrack just a little bit, we know that we have our conscious mind and our unconscious mind. It's pretty everybody talks about that pretty regularly. But I don't think that a lot of people fully understand what that is, right? It's thrown out as this, term that people can understand. That's deep in my unconscious or my subconscious or whatever word choice they want to use. But the majority of everything you think, do, feel, experience is controlled by your unconscious mind, okay? So we're walking around and we think that we're in control, but it's really a lie, right? And even walking to get into the store today, you might have made a conscious choice of saying, I know the direction of where it is or the street that it's on, or I'm going to turn left here and I'm going to walk into the door here. But pretty much everything that you pay attention to, see, focus, and the thoughts that are going on inside of your mind are happening due to this underlying aspect. And so how does that relate to beliefs, right? Basically it relates to beliefs is that how we see the world is how we view it, how we believe it to be. It's not I'll see it and then I'll believe it. It's I believe what I see, and you're going to continue to reinforce whatever it is that has been known to you since you were probably yay big, right? Since this is an interactive class, it doesn't have to be fully interactive, but I don't want it to be all lecture. I want you to get as much as you can get out of this. And at any time, if you don't want to speak and be present on the recording, I can just regurgitate your question. But if you do, I have another mic here, and I'll hand it over, and you can speak into it. If not, I'll regurgitate your question, and we'll be able to have other people be able to listen. So let's first start out by, why are you here? And what beliefs do you want to break, or what area do you want more knowledge, insight in? Okay? So if you're comfortable on the mic, I'll hand you the mic. If you're not comfortable on the mic, just let me know, okay? So who wants to go first? Anybody?
Could you please say the question again?
And then right where your thumb is where, do you see the little mic is tied right there?
Yes.
Okay, so you can just speak, just holding it like that. Okay. So the question is what kind of beliefs are you guided, and what are you hoping to, let me show you real quick. It's just, if you just hold it like this, it's just that. That's the mic. So you can just hold it and speak. It picks up pretty far. And so you got drawn to this class for a reason, okay? So in it, it's pretty limited. The description is, kind of breaking beliefs and stepping into the fullest potential. So what are you hoping to achieve? What questions do you might have? And what are some of those beliefs that you're looking to break?
Okay. I believe in karma a lot.
Okay.
So I think everything has a reason. Maybe it is a past life and many lives. Karma build up my subconscious.
Okay.
And my subconscious can lead my conscious to do a lot of things.
Perhaps.
That's my belief so far.
Okay.
And what I'm trying to learn here is, first of all, what is the fullest potential? Because I believe everyone has a limit. It's not like if you want to become the president, you can become the president. It may beyond your limit. So when you talk about the fullest potential, I'm really curious what this is about.
Okay, so let's look at that, a couple different things. First off, let's address karma, and then we'll get into the beliefs, and then we'll get into that aspect of fullest potential, okay? So karma is, you know, look at it as a scorecard, right? And that's how most people look at it. Yes, past lives, this life, whatever your belief system is, but there's ways that if you believe what you put out into the world, it comes back. That we live in this world of, you know, that which we give comes back to us, and that kind of mindset. You can look at karma on like a daily karma. You can look at it on an energetic karma, that you can't continue to put effort towards something and something doesn't come back towards you, right? You can also look at it as, you know, how you said, past and past lives and all of the other aspects of it. But regardless of any of that, there's ways that you can neutralize karma, build positive karma, and eradicate patterns and belief systems. Just because something you feel might be destined because of something that you did in the past doesn't mean that you can't negate that and do something amazing or wonderful to kind of counteract that aspect. Because oftentimes people view karma as negative. Karma isn't negative. Karma is a combination of everything. You can have positive karma just as much as you can have negative karma, right? But people are like, oh, it's my karma. It's negative. It's, you know, I'm having this tortured life because I must have been so horrible in the past, right? You know, like we can also say that we can create positive karma and be extremely blessed, right? And so it's like in each different moment, how is that action affecting not only yourself, but others, right? Because we can also be torturing ourselves, and then that's not creating any type of positive karma. Like, has anybody ever seen the TV show The Good Place? Okay. If you haven't, there's this, it's the most genius episode where he goes and he finds this guy that should have gotten into the good place but didn't. And do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, well, there's this episode and the main devil guy, he goes to try to discover why did this person not get into the good place, because you know, he had to have gotten into heaven, right? And they go and they look at the records, and he got placed in the bad place, and they say because his altruistic actions in the world were torturing himself. You know, so at what level? And it's just, you know, yes, it's a, you know, comedy TV show, but I mean, it really has an essence of truth to that. Oftentimes we sit there and we think, oh, well, if I sacrifice my life for the good of this person, then I must be generating good karma. Right? But no, you're suffering. So that actually creates negative, you know, because you do matter and you're the most important person in your own life. So doing unto another to sacrifice your own happiness, joy, financial success, love, truth, health, whatever it may be, is not building good karma. Okay? Now, so take and think about that a little, because oftentimes we do sacrifice a lot. But also know that there's nothing that is predestined that we have control over changing, right? That we don't have some control over changing, right? If you look at that, like if every action that you do if every action in your past equaled something, then every action that you do presently will equal something, right? And so you can allow yourself to shift anything, and I don't believe that we're doomed to have a mediocre life or to suffer, to have all of these things. We don't need to do that, you know? Now, there might be some things that could help balance the scales if we were a horrible human in our past, right? Okay? So that's first and foremost. Does that help a little bit? Okay, and we can get into more detail on this. This isn't necessarily a karma class, but it's creating your belief system, and it's a lot of beliefs that everybody has. And then, you know, the second aspect of it is this idea of fullest potential, okay? Now, our fullest potential is our fullest potential, right? And in that, I think that we have no idea what the capability of our potential is. even right now as a human species, I mean, look at the things that we're engineering right now. I mean, we're trying to build a city on Mars and set satellites out there to, like, you know, right now, like that's what Tesla is doing. Is SpaceX, they're launching satellites so that there can be internet on Mars, right? And all of the different changes, you know. My friend just took a job at a helicopter company that's doing transit, right? You know, so very soon in the next couple of years, we're going to see helicopter rides in place of cars, you know, like there's going to still be cars, but I mean, we're shifting the way that our reality even is, you know, and the different nanotechnology that can go into your blood and rebuild cells, and the miraculous things that are even coming within science in the physical world, and then take that to ourselves. Now, I think what people often get stuck on is the same thing that you got stuck on, is that there's also other people that are at play to determine our destiny, right? We can say it is our fullest potential, right? No, we can say that it's our ego to desire that we want to be president of the United States, right? Our fullest potential could be to be a very amazing leader and run an organization, a company, a structure, a nonprofit, a family, you know, whatever the case may be, right? But if we get attached to how it looks or how that is perceived within the world, then we are subject to defeat, right? Because then now we're creating an attachment. If I say, okay, I'm going to be president of the United States, well, that very well could be possible. And it could be my potential to be the president of the United States. And maybe in a few years that happens, right? But also, that's a desire inside of me. But what is the qualities and attributes of the president? What are they able to do? What do they learn? What are those other aspects? And can I step into learning that? Right? Can I get to that level of success or achievement or advancement within my own life, or my ability to communicate, rule, order, whatever the case may be? Is what are you looking at those for? Okay, so if we can say, okay, we're going to be, my fullest potential is to be an NBA player. Well, and I didn't even say WNBA, I said NBA. There might be a little blockages right there, you know, for me or for anybody. To become that professional athlete. But could they allow themselves to train their body to be extremely healthy and athletic and fit and, you know, be on top of their physical health? Absolutely, right? But then it's even looking at, what does that NBA player mean to them? You know, what is that aspect? Is it the physical? Is it the success? Is it the notoriety? Is it the financial payoff? Like, what are those driving factors? And we start to get clear on things, and we can start to see that when we peel away our limited beliefs, we actually open ourselves up to possibility, right? And so, do I believe anybody can become the greatest leader that they choose that they can be? Yeah. Do I believe that somebody can become the best athlete? Yeah. Do I believe that if anybody here or anybody listening wants to actually, you know, dive into a subject that they've known nothing about and advance in it? Absolutely. And when we pull aside and say, oh, well, I've only done this or that, you know, the only difference between people is what have you spent your time and energy doing, right? You know, just because you don't know something doesn't mean that you can't have the ability to learn it. Doesn't mean that you're stupid. Doesn't mean that you're incompetent. Doesn't mean that you're incapable of any way, shape, or form. It just means, like, okay, if you don't understand, you know, tech, it doesn't mean that you can't understand it at some point. It just means that maybe somebody else that is this advanced coder has dedicated hours and time and energy to learning that skill set, right? And so when we stop for a moment, it's asking ourselves, what is it that we really want? And that's why I said that it's more about ego to get attached to the result of the actual specific outcome than it is about the heart saying, well, what is it that I really want to master in this life? What is it I really want to experience? Because that's ultimately what it is, right? It's what do we really want? Okay? Yeah. Does that help a little bit? What's the next question? I see your mind rolling.
So I'm just thinking.
You're fine. Is it green? Okay. Just hold it. Okay.
So can I think in this way? When we have our desire, our passion, our desire and passion, just our desire, our goal is our fullest potential for now.
Yeah.
And we can split our life into so many stages. Maybe within the first stage we have a desire. That is our fullest potential for that stage. And when we reach it, we may have another desire, another goal. So it's like our fullest potential is changing while we are growing.
Yeah, and your fullest potential is always going to change, right? Because every time you get to the next thing, like take it into let's go back to elementary school, okay? Your fullest potential when you're a kindergartner is a certain level, right? Then your fullest potential when you're in first grade is very different than your fullest potential in second grade, which is your very fullest potential in third grade. Just because we graduated from our traditional school set doesn't mean that every day, week, month, and year of our life isn't another evolution of something that's shifted, right? And so but it's very easy for anybody to agree, oh yeah, he's only in third grade. He's reaching his fullest potential in that third grade, or learning that whatever challenges are being taught in reading, writing, arithmetic, and creative arts or whatever. We could say that's going to be very different than a ninth grader, right? But you too are going to continue to evolve, and it's my belief that every single person that is in this experience right now of a physical form, no matter whether they're a saint, guru, master, whatever, they're still learning a human experience. Otherwise, they would be just floating around on the astral plane, right? And so that there is a level of evolving. I mean, there's so much. I mean, we've only discovered 5% of the ocean, for goodness sakes. You know, how much more is there to discover about ourselves? Because I believe that our external reality is a really strong indication of our internal self. And think about, we're still discovering how food affects our nutrition in our body. There's so much that we're not even understanding about our physical self, right? It was interesting. They just came out with a cool study that showed that how we attract each other is largely to do with the bacteria that's in our body, whether we have chemistry or not. Isn't that fascinating? Because there's more bacteria cells in our body than human cells. And there's the certain cultures can feel like they're harmonious with different cultures and then repel different cultures. And it's one of the aspects that controls our attraction, right? But that just came out like a year ago or something like that. So, I mean, think about all the things we're learning. So, of course, we're going to continue to evolve. Okay?
I'm here because I always want to better myself.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm a little bit stuck in, and it's probably the I can't in my head. Because I used to, when I was a child, there was no I can't. I would be told, like, oh, you're entering that contest, you're not going to win, millions of people are entering. And I'm gonna. And I would win. I didn't have the I can't. And now I feel very, limited because of my own thought process. Even though consciously I'm like, no, I can. But I know within me it's I can't, and that's why I'm stuck.
And this is the beauty of it, right? So you have your mind, and you have your unconscious and you have your conscious. And so when you look at it in that ratio, it's like 80 to 90% being unconscious and only like 10 to 20% being conscious, that when you look at it like that, I'm really happy that you are aware of that. Because people tell me all the time, they say, I've been doing these positive affirmations, not doing anything. And I kind of chuckle to myself, and then I explain to them, it's like, okay, if you think, I don't know, if I say my pants are black, you're going to tell me no. In a fraction of a millisecond, you're going to tell me no. And even if I tell you that my pants are black another 10 times, you're still going to tell me no. right? You didn't change your belief because a long time ago you learned that the word for this color pigment is maybe like baby blue or bluish green. I don't even know what color it is, but you learned a word for that. And if I say anything other than that, you're going to reject it because deep in your unconscious mind, you know better, right? And so when we have these synced in beliefs that come, and it's not just because of yourself, it might have been a couple things happened that didn't pan out the way that you wanted it, but it's a cultural thing, right? We're taught that, almost like not to try in a way, and the influence of no, you can't be everything and you can't do this, or, like maybe you won't win, and it's, yeah, I get it that people are trying to help. But the bottom line is, look at what you said. When you believed you were going to win, you won, When I work with actors and actresses or other people in different professions that go in for things like auditions and stuff, when they believe they're going to get the role, the majority of time they actually get it, right? And so what is that, right? You could say that it's intuition, but it's a confidence that says, I am going to have this, right? And there's a definiteness of purpose, and we do this all the time with so many things in life. We can say, I'm hungry and I want, I don't know, give me something like Thai food or something like that. And we can say, I'm in the mood for Thai food. So you're going to go and you're going to find a restaurant and seek out Thai food, right? And when you go there, you might even have a dish that you really want to order. Maybe it's pad Thai, maybe it's pad see-ew, maybe whatever the case is, but you can go in there and you can order specifically what you want. And you go with that direction. Same thing, like if you were like, oh, okay, you need a certain outfit to wear, right? Or a certain type of event you're going to or thing, or you're looking for something specific for your home and you go shopping. If you go to the store and they don't have it, you don't give up. You say, I know I can find this somewhere. And you have this level of confidence that if it's not at this store, then it'll be at that store. Or if it's not on that store, I'll find it on Etsy or I'll find it on Amazon. But I know somebody has got to have created this at some point or created this pattern or whatever the heck you're looking for. And because of that belief, I firmly believe that is what is allowing you to achieve and to buy, to create, to find that object. I mean, sometimes you've never even seen it before, but you're like in the kitchen and you're like, there's got to be a tool that does this, right? And you have no idea whether it's ever been invented or not. You have no idea, but then you start to look for it. Maybe you pull up, the smartphone and you Google it and say, item for this, and you see a picture of it, and then you say, okay, I need to find it, right? But the bottom line is you believe. You don't hold yourself back and you allow yourself to create, achieve, or have what it is that you're seeking.
So how do you shift? Because I think one of the things is as a kid, the innocence of maybe lack of experience.
Exactly.
You don't have the limiting beliefs. And now as a grown-up, you have the limiting beliefs that's like, I can't. Whether it be winning a contest or a job is offered and you're like, no, I can't. So how do you shift your mind, your unconscious mind, back to the innocence that I guess you have as a child?
Perfect. That is what this class is all about, Okay, so
Does it have to be green the whole time?
It's supposed to be. So
okay.
Pretty much.
So just if we're talking, does it need to be green, or when
yeah,
you're talking too?
It doesn't matter. It's just.
It just keeps going off.
I wonder if it wasn't on all the way or the battery's dead.
But
that's okay.
I'll just watch it.
When it's solid green, it should stay.
See it not green for sure.
Okay, so pretty much, just in case that question wasn't, it was like, how do you switch your unconscious mind to go back to the innocence of a child, to go back to the time when you weren't wounded, That I look at it as that we live our life through this one 4-letter word called fear. Right? But I like an acronym for fear. I call it false evidence appearing real, And really that's what it is. It's this false perception, it's this false evidence that we're not going to win, we're going to be humiliated, they're not going to like us, we're not going to get that job, we're not really going to be allowed to do that thing that we want to do. And we create this story that builds this perception, that continues to reinforce that perception, that continues to fade even deeper, right? So how do we shift that? Okay? Well, when you were a kid, you believed everything was possible. And so there's a little bit of teaching. So there's a couple ways to shift your unconscious mind, okay? One of which, the strongest one that you can do outside of working with anybody, is through experiences, okay? Forcing yourself to have a new experience shifts your unconscious mind. Because we just said, if I tell you, and you repeat a mantra in your mind over and over, I'm amazing, I'm lucky, like, possibly it starts to seep in, but for the most part, you're just going to reject. Just as fast as it happens, you're going to reject it, okay? So instead, it's how do we give ourselves these experiences that show us that we're what we want? So everybody's belief systems are a little bit, the fears are a little stronger in one area over others, right? And when we can allow ourselves to say, well, what am I fearing most, right? What am I most fearful? Because if you divide your life into a wheel, okay, and you draw spokes, and you do 4 lines through, and you kind of break up your pie of life into 8 spokes, you can start to assess if this is a center point, and then this is like a 10 on the top, and then the line all the way in between, you can rate how you're doing in life. And so there's things like your health. There's things like your career. There's your relationships. There's your intimate relationship. There is how you are with money. There's your sense of purpose and value. And I'm missing one, but okay, so you get the point. But if you start to view it, that most of the time somebody's really good at, let's say, they're amazing at their career, right? But just because they're amazing at career, they can be horrible at managing their money, right? And they could just spend everything, gamble it away, do whatever it is. Okay? Then they could be amazing at their career, but they suck at love. Okay? Or love never seems to be a problem, but advancing in their career seems to be a problem. Or they have love and career down, but their health sucks, right? And so it's this constant figuring out the balance. So it's first you have to identify what area of life needs the most work right now that would change you the most, right? And when you look at it in those sectors and you say, okay, maybe it's your health, right? And you say, okay, well, what needs to change in my health? Why is it difficult for me to eat right? Why do I always eat these poor foods? Why do I want to eat, sugars and fats all the time? Why is it that I'm doing this? Like, what is it about your belief system around food that needs to shift? And then how do you allow yourself to have experiences that start to support that, right? Because maybe there's a belief system or a limiting belief that vegetables are disgusting and gross. So how do you start to have experiences that you actually enjoy the taste of the vegetables or the way that they're cooked, right? And then you start training your mind to have a different filter system, right? Okay? If it is like, let's say, your management of money, maybe it's allowing yourself to start to have experiences where you're either working with somebody outside of you or you're budgeting and you're really actively trying to have this different relationship with how you spend money. And as you actively try to have this different relationship, you start to shift your internal belief system, okay? And it only takes 21 days to break a habit, okay? We think that it's a lot harder because our resistance and our walls pop up. But literally, what if I told you were 21 days away from at least internally feeling that you could have exactly the life you wished? In whatever area or multiple areas of your life. I mean, think about it. Since we talk about food, if you start eating really clean, within a few weeks of doing so, you don't want to eat the bad food. It actually is kind of disgusting to you, right? But flip that a little bit, and let's say you start eating bad for a while and you go out to a restaurant, you're more drawn to order the bad thing, not the good thing, right? If you start a new job and you have to wake up earlier in the morning, it's really painful to do it for the first couple days or weeks. And then you wake up before your alarm even goes off. But teach yourself and allow yourself to pull yourself out of this. The easiest way to start to shift your beliefs is not blame yourself for your beliefs. And make them something that is outside of you, that's an aspect of me, that's something that I have done before, but that isn't me. Do you see the difference? There's an identity that most people have with their beliefs that solidify them stronger, but when you can detach and you can separate, you know, even if you start to put it in past tense. In the past, I was lousy at love, right? In the past, I didn't allow people to love me, right? And you know, and then you can say, oh, there was the old me, or this aspect, there's a part of me that really pushes people away, right? And so you can say there's a part, or I have a behavior or a tendency to be like that, right? The more you further disassociate yourself with your belief, you don't identify it anymore, right? And then, if we can do that, and you can listen and draw some awareness, maybe carrying a journal around with you and you're seeing what your thoughts are, okay? And so what are my thoughts? And how do I want to replace them? And how do I start to dissociate with that, right? Because you have to disassociate yourself first. If not, you've already integrated it as this is who you are, you know? Like if there's, I'm just unlucky. No, I've had unlucky experiences. Do you see the difference? I'm unlucky. I've had unlucky experiences. Say them internally in your mind and feel the difference. It's different. And so the subtleties actually make the biggest differences. If somebody's playing the guitar up here and one key's off tune, how much do they have to push on the little button that's up on the top? How much do they have to turn that knob to make it in tune? Hardly anything. It's like a little tap sometimes. And then all of a sudden, it's perfect harmony. What if we're that close to us having our perfect harmony? You know? And you had it. You had it when you were a kid. And then you live life, and you know what's ridiculous about it is you know more now, you have more experience, more knowledge, and more capabilities, and a hell of a lot more freedom. Okay? So as a kid, you believed it was possible, but now you literally have way more to offer yourself. Okay? So going back to actionable steps, looking at what area of your life, and I feel that it's most effective to work on one area and then work on another area, right? Because we might say that our whole wheel is messed up and we're down here on everything, you know? And okay, that's great, but what area do you want to change first, right? And then let's say, how do we hyper focus on that area? Because, and then you can look at what area is working for you, right? And how do you think about yourself differently in those areas, right? Because you might have these stories that you tell yourself that support yourself in a certain area, and then you have this defeatism and negative thought patterns that break you down in another area, right? And you're like, wait, I was just telling myself I was so amazing in this, and yet I'm telling myself that I'm completely incapable in this, okay? So detaching from what it is, identifying what it is, and then showing yourself how you can have those experiences, okay? And realizing that it doesn't take much time. If the life you really wanted was within 3 weeks of your reach, and all you had to do was be committed to your own self for 3 weeks, would you do it? You know, you shake and you say yes, and my challenge would be that to actually do it. Because most people say that because it is my belief and seeing with people that you can literally have whatever it is that you want, okay? As long as that it's authentically good for you and it doesn't damage others. But then there's a whole slew of people living in this world that have whatever it is they want, and they're destructive to the world, society, people, and individuals. So who's to know? Maybe you can have exactly what you want. But I would just hope that you have it from a heart-centered place, that you can achieve it from a way that is less destructive or not destructive, okay? But most people could have everything like that, and the interesting thing is they stop short. There's a story that goes from So I think most people know that the most gold that was ever struck in California, or in the United States, was struck in California. Do you guys know that? The biggest gold vein that has been? Okay. Well, there's actually a very interesting true story out of that the saying, 3 feet from gold, came from. Has anybody ever heard, did you stop 3 feet from gold? Or 3 feet short, you stop 3 feet short? There's like, okay, there's a saying that maybe it's more prevalent in the Midwest or things where I grew up, but there's a saying of like, don't stop 3 feet too short, or you stop 3 feet short of gold, or whatever. And the saying comes from this Mr. Derby had he struck gold. And I'm not sure if it was Mr. Derby or if Mr. Derby was the one that sold the plot of land. But it pretty much, he was digging and digging and digging, this person that had this gold mine. And he wasn't striking gold. He had struck it in the very beginning. And he was getting really frustrated, and he kept on going and going and going. And he was at a bar drinking or doing whatever he was doing, and he said, you know what, I'm done with this, and said, I'll sell you my plot of land and all the equipment for this like low, ridiculous price. And the person at the bar, I think it was Mr. Derby, he said, I'll buy it. Because he calculated in his mind, even if there was no gold, the equipment alone, he could resell it and make his money back. And so he did what this other guy didn't do. And he went and hired an archaeologist or whatever, or a geologist, and said, tell me, where I could find gold. And he laughed when he went into the mine and said, look at where this vein was originally struck. Anybody that knows anything about gold knows that it runs like this, or however it runs. Turn, dig 3 feet deep in, and you will hit that vein once again. And so the person was digging this way the whole time and getting nowhere, but all they had to do was take a moment and dig this way, and he would have achieved the most gold that was ever struck in California. And so that's a true story. And so 3 feet away from where that person pretty much gave up, there was all the gold that one could ever have to make a huge, tremendous fortune. But that's the case. Most people are the guy that gave up. We're super close to having what it is that we want. We're super close to, the love of our lives, to breaking our barrier and having a diet that actually sticks, or a fitness regimen that works. We're super close to advancing in our career, having an opportunity, or making our business successful, and then we give up, right? Because most of the time, in order to make anything happen in life, there's a little thing called friction that creates motion, right? Do you move without friction? Your tires need to go against the surface of the ground in order to move forward. And people mistake friction for these horrible obstacles, or that it's not going to work. But I don't know about you, but if I'm working out and I'm just going like this, I'm never going to build muscle. But if I grab the next dumbbell size up and it's a little tighter and a little harder, I'm actually forming muscle, right? Now, how do we not give up on what we want, and how do we shift our mindset that our obstacles, or the friction that we face, are actually causing us to move forward, build muscle, gain new skill set, and get us further ahead, right? Did Tony Robbins give up when his old CEO or whatever of the company stole those millions of dollars from him and like bankrupt his company? You guys know about that? And he had a very horrible person that he truly believed in, and he even paid for the kids' college and did all this stuff and was the nicest person, and the guy smuggled money and drained his accounts and did all this stuff, and he didn't give up. He actually came back stronger and became even more successful, right? And you hear of those challenges with people. Henry Ford, I don't know how many times he failed at having a car company. And then it was the last go around, and he ended up getting sued by all his past investors when he made the Model T, because they were like, oh, you were holding yourself back. Of course, they didn't win, because he was just but he gave them the opportunity to invest again, and they didn't want to invest. And he was I'm going to keep on trying. I'm this close. I'm not going to give up. Do you think if he would have gave up on one of the other bankruptcies that he had to face, and that we would even probably have the car system that we have today? No. Or Edison's a good example too. It took him almost 1,000 tries or something to make a light bulb. If he would have gave up, do you see how close every person that has achieved that full potential that we might think, and I would say that they could achieve far more, Einstein, Edison, Henry Ford, everybody, because there's no cap. There's no cap. We're this ever-expanding universe. How is there a cap on what we can create? I mean, when you read a book or learn something, can't you learn more? And can't you go further? And can't you go further? And if you've went to the furthest point of what has been created within knowledge to date, then you can create it with your mind and even go further. Okay, so other ways. I'm a firm believer in working with people to enroll them in your possibilities of what you're shifting, but be very careful because most people are naysayers and will knock your goals down faster than they will support you. Okay? And so it's who can you enroll that helps hold you accountable. It's the same way if you go to the gym, if you create a buddy system, you're more likely to show up than if you don't. Right? So how do you create somebody in your life that, even if they're a relative stranger, that you can support each other in advancing on where you're going, right? Because if you can create that support system, you're twice as likely. So there's identifying, there's journaling out what your current thoughts and feelings and beliefs are. There's doing little activities and exercises that say, that tell your mind that whatever you believe is a lie. And the more you tell your mind that whatever you believe is a lie, the more you realize that what you want to believe is the truth, right? I mean, you had it when you were a kid. You said, I can do this, I can win this, I can challenge myself. And oftentimes, since we already have that base, our unconscious mind works like scales. Whatever there's more of, that's the results. So this used to be you, and then something happened, and there was these experiences that a few of them weighed a lot, a few of them were little things, but along the way it was like that. But this energy is still there. The energy of possibility, the energy of expansion, the energy of winning, having victory, leadership, whatever that is, that's there. So how do we go like this again? Okay? And that's subtleties of experiences. That's allowing yourself to do those different things, okay? Now you can also, work with people. You can do I do hypnotherapy on people. You can do that, and that reprograms people's beliefs. You can do guided meditation work that starts to shift that. You can allow yourself to see what other kind of blocks and obstacles are happening by talking through things, because oftentimes what we think isn't what's really, as we go deeper. Even in this conversation right now, you're thinking of things differently than you did. I see the thoughts going on in your mind. And it's oftentimes having that interaction, And then there's a lot of amazing books that challenge you to be different, right? And exercises. There's this one book, and I forget what it's exactly called, but for people seeking love, but it's Find Your Soulmate in 21 Days or something along those lines, or 30 Days to Love or something. But it's interesting. I was talking to somebody that read the book. I haven't yet. I don't remember what it's called. But I looked at it from that psychoanalytic viewpoint and looking at how that shapes your unconscious mind. And every single day, the person had to do something to show their self-love. And so they fell in love with their self, which in turn attracted love. Because you can't attract another person to love you if you don't even love yourself. And so it was interesting. I remember her saying that one of the times they had to cook themselves an amazing dinner and plate it all beautifully and enjoy a candlelit dinner with herself. Another time they had to go and take a like a bath that was really like loving and went out of the way with bubble bath, or maybe put flowers in it and other things. They went and they bought themselves a new outfit that they felt great in. Like each day was something different. But every day of the month, they had to do something extremely loving for themselves. I think one of the other times they had to go get a massage. They had to do, so it was these little things. And by the end of the month, they were loving themselves and they were loving their life. And so, I can't say that 100% with certainty, do those exercises and books and you're going to have your soulmate appear, but, it makes sense. But if you could take the principles of that book and the little exercises and create exercises for yourself, right? Because we all know what we don't do well. And we all know that what would feel well in somebody else. If we said, oh, okay, if I was giving this exercise for one of my best friends or my lover or my family member, I'd probably tell them to do this, 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 and this. Okay? So map your own problem and issue on somebody else and say, what would I recommend them doing? Oh, okay, somebody wants to really start their own business or whatever. Okay, so I would probably recommend that they go to the SB, a Small Business Development Center. I would probably recommend that they go and they read this book. I would recommend that they, talk to whatever, blah, 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 right? But you would have a whole thing of recommendations for somebody that pop into your head. So what can we have you do, And if it's winning contests and doing things like that again, it's like, okay, I would tell somebody to submit to every contest they could possibly, submit to, and not be attached to the results. I would, do this or do that, or, get mentorship in that, right? Because we can learn it. Anybody else have any questions? I don't know what's wrong with that thing today.
It stays on for like a second and then blinks off.
Huh. It might be like I changed the batteries, but it might have just...
Yeah. So I came because thanks to my friend here, she brought me here, and then I'm just trying to figure out a way to relax, like ease my anxiety. So I've always been not believe into that things will just turn out to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that everything has to be moved forward by each individual. So I don't believe there will be free lunch in the world. I don't believe that God just give me something that lands in front of me and then make me success. So I believe that only when I push the hardest I could and work the hardest I could will be able to make me achieve that. But then the thing is that there are always, as you said before, there are always limits. Like for example, you said that if you want to go to MBA, there are something that stops you, and there's difficulties and all stuff. And then so I have hard time to manage the anxiety that I have to keep myself moving.
Okay.
And keeping myself like not as anxious.
Okay. So if we look at this, just to reiterate, it's having, you're saying that you have a lot of anxiety and that it's in your belief system that you must work hard in order to achieve things, and that in order for you to have any level of success, you have to really push yourself extremely hard, okay? Now, do you see that this is always the case in others? No. Okay. Okay, so that's the first step of seeing that maybe this belief isn't 100% in certainty, okay? If you can see in others that it's different, this is your belief system, okay? But it's not making you happy. And so I would challenge you and to say, well, do you, the first thing is because you have a really big belief system on God, and so I would say, well, do you think God wants you to suffer? So you're shaking your head no, okay? Do you think that God wants you to be unhappy? No, okay? So let's look at, is this hard work and energy really causing happiness, right? Or are you just working so hard, pushing yourself to the limit, and feeling like, you know, things don't come easy. Like, I would almost argue that some of those belief systems are passed down from parents, you know. Nothing comes easy, you know, there's no free handouts in this world. You know, if you want to make something for yourself, you got to really work hard. Money doesn't grow on trees. You know, these sayings, right? And yes and no. Do you need to put in effort? Does the effort need to be painful? No. And at the moment that you start to look at your life and you see, has there been times when you've allowed yourself to live in joy and happiness and be in the moment when things just happened? You know, it could be that you were out to lunch with a friend and just having a fun time, and they recommended something that caused you the next advancement in your career or your life. You weren't going there to work hard. You were going there to have fun, right? And the more you can start to see that, it's how do we pull that belief system? Now, anxiety is one of the things that paralyze people the most. And it's, if you really look at anxiety, anxiety is not trust and being overpowered with fear. Anxiety is having an attachment to an outcome. Anxiety is feeling as if there's only one way that things can be okay, and if they're not okay, then life isn't going to work out, right? And so we stress and we say, oh my God, this dinner party needs to be perfect and the things need to happen, and I have so much anxiety. If it's not plated right, then it's going to be a horrible failure, and if the dinner isn't served at 6:05, then everything's going to fail, right? And literally, I'm giving a silly example, but people have anxiety about these things, right? When we feel like this is time, things have, but will the world end if it got served at 6:30? No. If the store was out of chicken and you ended up serving seafood instead, would it be the end of the world? No. Okay. And oftentimes, when things don't happen the way that we want them to, they actually happen better than we could have even planned. Okay? That's the important part. Like maybe the store being out with chicken and the salmon's a huge hit, maybe like it ended up being good, and then you realize that one of the main guests doesn't eat poultry, right? But it wasn't your plan, right? But it was this enrollment. I oftentimes see this within relationships, is that a lot of times people get really attached to a person, and they feel that they're destined to be with them and they need to be with them. And even if they're completely unhappy, and they try to force it to work, and they say, and then they, you know, but the moment that they let go and they allow themselves to move forward, they meet somebody else. And it's in meeting that other person that they realize this person is far better for them. It's not saying that anybody's better or worse, but they're far better fit for them than the other person. But it wasn't until they actually detached from this person that they allowed themselves to experience something that they couldn't have planned, or somebody that they didn't even know yet, right? And it's the same, like, since I said Thai food earlier, I'm going to give an example of like a client I had that had never eaten Thai food before. And across the street from her work, there was a Thai restaurant, and she decided to try it one day, and she ordered the pad Thai, and it was her favorite dish. She went there once a week. And she was so happy with that food and that particular restaurant and that particular dish that she never bothered to even try another Thai place. And in her mind, it was amazing. So she brought somebody else with, and they sat down, and the person orders. She's so excited to see what they like. Did they like it? This is her new favorite restaurant. And the person takes a bite. Do you really think this is good Thai food? And her response, of course, is yes, this is the only Thai food that I've ever experienced. This is the only dish I've ever tried. And the person looks at her, kind of chuckles and says, well, I eat Thai food all the time, and I've tried a lot of different restaurants. Next week, I'm going to take you to one of my favorite places. And they go. And so she orders the pad Thai. And when the plate comes out, she tries her first bite, and to her surprise, she lights up with the most amazing flavors, outweighs the other place so much that she could never even go back. She didn't even realize that Thai food could taste so good. And the metaphor for that is, how much do we do that with our own life? We limit ourselves based on our expectations, and we say, oh, based on what we know, based on what we've experienced, this is the best it can be. But we don't know whether we can love deeper, whether we can be happier, whether we can, have a different cuisine, or a different restaurant that is far superior, right? We don't know until we experience. And we can start to form a thing called trust inside of ourselves. And that trust can continue to allow you to know that no matter what, everything's going to be okay. Because it is. It always has been. Even our biggest obstacles and our biggest challenges are truly our biggest gifts. Right? Look back. That failed relationship led us to something new. Even if we're in a failed relationship now, it'll lead us to something new, right? When one job ends, a new thing happens. When something, horrible transpires in our life, it forces us to dig deeper, to learn about ourselves, to move forward. Like, really, as long as we're living, it's not that bad, okay? And so when we can start to have inner peace for that, and we can trust that maybe we don't know what's best, and maybe it's always going to be okay, and we can also believe in ourselves to navigate during that experience, we can start to eradicate the fear and the anxiety that paralyzes us, that limits us, because that's what anxiety does. Limit. This is how it must be. This is where it must go. This is, at the end of the day. I mean, think about people that get super anxious when they're late for somewhere. How is that helping? It's not the end of the world. So maybe you call and you say, hey, I'm running 15 minutes late. Traffic's killer, especially in LA. Now, maybe the next time you take that as a learning instead of a paralyzing thing that causes you to have high blood pressure and stress yourself out and all of that stuff. Maybe you say, okay, next time I'm going to leave 30 minutes earlier than I planned. And if I get somewhere early, I'm going to have a coffee. I'm going to have a tea. I'm just going to sit and maybe read a couple chapters of the book or journal my new thoughts of what I'm changing in my life. Now, if you keep on leaving at the same time, doing the same thing, stressing yourself out, you're not learning from the stress you're putting yourself in anyways and the anxiety. So how's that helping? So it's how do we not make it wrong? Okay. What else? Yeah, questions, different things. We have a little bit more time. We started a little late.
How do we differentiate our goal? Because I do believe, our belief creates the reality. How do we differentiate the correct belief and illumination fantasy?
Okay. How do we between fantasy and
realistic goal?
Okay. So there's a little thing that I like to teach called SMART goals, and one, they have to be, a SMART goal is a successful goal that's manageable, it's achievable, it's realistic, and it has a timeline to it, right? Those are but I also don't like to limit people. Who's to say that you can't dream and create whatever the heck you want to create? But in your life, it's a lot more manageable if you make $50,000 a year to create a goal to make $100,000 a year. It doesn't mean that you can't go from making $50,000 a year to making $10 million a year. You could. It would just be a lot more challenging for your mind to grasp that as a reality because it seems so far out of the norm of what you normally know, right? And that's why when a lot of people, what I said is that you might have a lot of wheels of your life or spokes that you want changed. My recommendation wouldn't be to change all of them at once because you're setting yourself up for unmanageability, okay? Now, if you do one at a time, you can change all aspects of your life, and then you can go back around and maybe go from having them all at a 2 to having them all at a 5 to having them all at an 8 to having them all at a 10, right? And so, but how do you do that, okay? So, first off, don't limit yourself. But now if your limiting of yourself starts to seem like it's an impossibility, how do you get comfortable with the next step of your goal to be something that you feel is possible, right? If somebody's going to climb Mount Everest, they're not just looking at the huge peak all the time. They're going one step at a time, one little latch at a time, right? Yeah, I mean, even just hiking Griffith Park or any of these mountains over here, you're not like staring at the thing saying, oh my God, it's so far, I have to climb. You're more than likely the fastest, most enjoyable way of doing it is just walking. And, you know, if you go with a friend or if you're listening to music or listening to an audiobook or whatever, and before you know it, you're turning around and you're like, wow, geez, I can't believe how far I got. So if we allow ourselves to say that, and whatever goal that is that's next in your life, well, how do you know that you feel comfortable with it first? And then take the steps. And then know that it's not about creating the whole path. I mean, even, it's sometimes nice to see the GPS view. Like, think about, you know, we all use our little like maps in our phones now, sometimes more than even knowing how to drive around town. But if you know, most of the time it's in the view where you just see the street view, you know, and it's like you're only seeing a few feet in front of you and, you know, whatever. But a lot of times it's nice to look at the bird's eye view and see the path that we're going on, and we can alter our route if we want, we can do different things, you know, but most of the time when we live life, we're living from that street view. And it's the next few feet in front of us and the next few feet in front of us. And if we keep on doing that, I mean, even like on all the 12-step programs that exist, you know, it's one day at a time, right? And if we look at it like that, we don't need to become a rocket scientist tomorrow, but we can start learning maybe math and calculus, and then we can learn this, and then we can learn that. And then before you know it, maybe we are a rocket scientist, right? But when we get carried away with that huge goal, it becomes hard. Like, I think like if somebody has a financial goal that they want to make $10 million a year, they're only at 50,000. Do I think they can get there? Absolutely. Do I think they can get beyond there? Absolutely. You know, however, maybe start with, how do I get from 50,000 to 100,000, 100,000 to 200,000, 200,000 to 400,000, 400,000 to 800,000? That might happen in 1 year. You know, that might happen, you know, in 10 years, right? But if you break it down smaller to a piece that you can actually digest and push yourself the next step, then you're shifting those belief systems one step at a time. You know, if you know, like if you're trying to build a relationship or find somebody, like how do you just go out on a date that week, right? You may have married person. How do you go on a date? How do you add in, like, you know, go on a second date? How do you like say, okay, well, they're not worth, I'm going to go on another thing. But if you never go on a date, you're never going to get in a relationship, right? And so how do you start those little modules, right? If you want to lose 100 pounds and you just focus on losing 100 pounds, you're going to like wear yourself out. But if you just say, okay, I'm going to work on trying to lose a couple pounds this week, right? That's more manageable. Can the person still lose the 100 pounds? Absolutely. They're less likely to do it if they focus on the main goal.
So can we say let's believe in, okay, something great is going to happen, we are going to achieve our goal, but focus on the current moment?
Yes. So what? Since the mic didn't work, you were saying, is it safe to say that instead of focusing on that you believe that your goal is achievable, but you focus on the current moment?
Just like our belief, just strongly believe that, okay, we can achieve this goal.
Mm-hmm.
But our attention is on our current moment.
That is for you to know that you can achieve the goal and your focus to be on the current moment is the ideal situation for life, right? Because now you're not doubting. Remember when you said earlier that you used to believe you could win the contest and you would? If you think that if you're gonna go on a trip to Hawaii next year and you don't have the ticket bought, do you know that that's possible? Do you focus on it? Do you think about it and stress about it? Or do you live your life and know that you're gonna go to Hawaii next year and maybe next month you buy the ticket, maybe 2 months later, but you know that it's gonna happen. You don't doubt it, you know? You think it's within your control and you think that, okay, I need to go on the computer and buy an airline ticket and I'm off to Hawaii, right? It's not that problematic. And we don't question it every other day. That's a problem people have, is they every time you question your goal, it's an indication that you doubt your goal. Yeah, you're saying every time you question it, it is a negative seed you're planting, and you're pulling it back, and you're saying, I don't believe that's possible, And so did this happen yet? Oh, no, let me think about this. You worry about it and you doubt it. Think about the things that you don't doubt. You don't think about them all the time, That's what, like since we've been talking about dating and things like that too, if you're really looking forward to a date, and it was maybe your second date with somebody, you sometimes stress out about it and you think maybe he or she is going to cancel and blah, 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 blah. And you go over and over and over in your mind. And maybe you start to put that energy out there and you actually cause it to happen. But yet if you had dinner booked with a friend and you were scheduled, they could just as easily cancel on you, but you don't think about it and stress about it. And the likelihood that would more than likely happen would happen. Right? Because let's say those negative seeds that are doubted about the dating, you might start to over-text the person, you might start to, and you make them push away. And then oh, this woman or man is crazy, let me get out of here. They've asked me 6 times if we're still on for Friday night. You get what I'm saying? And so how do we know, and how do we make that certain within our life? And then how do we forget about it? Because our goals or our destinations are irrelevant to our journey. Our goals and our destinations are irrelevant to our journey. What I mean by that is once we achieve whatever thing that we're seeking to achieve, talk to anybody. They're going to tell you what's the story in the journey to get there. That benchmark of that then slowly turns into what's next, right? Life is the road that we're on. It's not getting to, if you're going to drive across the country, do you put it in your mindset that it's the destination, or is it the journey that you're going on, right? And the stories that you're telling along the way. It's not that diploma that you get or that degree that you get after completion of whatever you studied. It's oftentimes all the memories of the 4 years before it that led up, right? And that's what creates our life. And so are we going to wait and just try to grab the goal? Or are we going to try to enjoy the moments that we're getting up? So when you hike to the top of the mountain, that's great, you're looking down, but it was the hike up that was the important aspect. That was what it was all about, was to hike the mountain, not to be at the top of the mountain, right? And so how do we have compassion for ourselves for the beautiful journey that we're in? How do we love the moments that we're single or the moments that we're struggling just as much as we're going to love the moments that we're successful, right? In appreciation of those times. And the more that we can do that, the more we embrace life. And that goes back to that trust, and there is no mistakes. There is no anxiety needed. And then if you get rid of anxiety, which means you get rid of fear, you step more into your courageous self, and then you're going to try to live the life that you've always wanted. And you're going to let go of the other thing that paralyzes us besides our own beliefs, or our preoccupation in whatever anybody else believes. Does that make sense? Because this person says, oh, you can't do that, or this person's not going to approve of my choices or decisions, suddenly, and it can be strangers, for goodness sakes. You walk into some place and you want to buy this, but you look at this person's looking at you weird, and then you're like, maybe I shouldn't get that. Maybe I'll get this, right? And it's like, you don't even know this person. You'll never see them again in your life. And then the people that are in your life, ultimately, even if they have an opinion about your life, if you really chunk it up and do like a process, well, why would they want that from you? Oftentimes people have parent issues, okay? Their parents want them to be something, and then they feel that they need to step into the role of their parents. Doesn't matter how old somebody is, they have parent issues. Parents could be dead, they still have parent issues. And when they ask, well, why would they want that for you? Oh, well, they think that I would be happy that way. I would be secure. I would be whatever. I'd be taken care of, and that would achieve that. That would mean that I'm happy, right? But ultimately, those people in your life that maybe are the most critical are only care so much and even put energy in because they want some form of happiness for you. And if you can instead giving them the power to choose your happiness, say you know your happiness because you're tapping into yourself, then you're going to show them your happiness, and ultimately they're going to be satisfied anyways. But it's their happiness doesn't mean, like for instance, somebody might be like, oh, like, shouldn't you have this happen? Or I think you should work at this job because that's going to create stability. Or you should, marry this type of person so that you can have this happen. And it's all from their own fears. I always say when somebody points a finger at you, there's 3 pointing back at them. Okay? And every opinion is going to tell you more about them than it will about you. And when you get that, you don't have to listen to it anymore. And then you can just say, this is ultimately like life. When you were a kid, that's how you lived. You said, oh, look at this is my life. It's bright and beautiful, and I get to do whatever I want to do. And yes, there's limitations that come and be imposed on you by, but you believe anything's possible and that you don't have to answer to anyone. You're less self-critical of yourself as far as how do people look. You can cry, you can laugh, you can dance, you do whatever you do. And you're not worried about whether these people over here are judging you. You just allow yourself to be free. But how do we be free again so that you can actually create your full potential, right? Because you won't know what your full potential is if you're limiting yourself based on these restrictions. You're not even allowing yourself to know what it is that's going to fill your heart with joy. Does that, So I'll leave you with that. And, for recap on the exercises, get a journal, start to be clear on your thought processes. First, identify the one area in life that you want to focus on first, okay? And then map that area onto somebody else that is really important to you, and what advice would you give them? Not just advice as far as, I think you should do this. It's experiences. The only way to change your mind is through experiences. Because you bombard your senses with a new reality that your mind is left with nothing but to change that belief system because it's contradictory to what you believe, right? So you have to give yourself experiences. Think about that example of the self-love book of 30 exercises for 30 days, Do it for 21 days. Think of one small thing you can do every day that shifts that area of your life. And if you need help, hold yourself accountable with somebody else that that's in your life that's actually committed to change. The people that are naysayers, and the people that that are going to hold you back. But you also know that there's a couple people that you can really depend on for support, and maybe they want change just as much as you do. So commit on that, and then be very aware when you're journaling the different thought patterns that you have about that. Take those thought patterns and allow yourself to disassociate with the identity of the thought, to make the thought outside of you instead of being a part of you. So you can start to shift it away from being a belief. And then after that, we start to instill how you really want to be in that area. Does that make sense? Okay. And if you need help, there's amazing meditation classes that we do here and sessions, hypnotherapy from other people besides me too. But, shifting. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.